This is going to be a segment called The Culture. It's a segment on my website, ThaBeatBox.com, which is launching this week. And this is going to be one of the first of many video series where I speak with people who are pushing the culture forward all in their own ways. I have the podcast where I talk to artists, producers, or whatever, people who make music, or who are music adjacent. But this is going to be people from all aspects of hip hop that push the culture forward. So you're the first. You're breaking us in.
Appreciate it, man. I appreciate it.
But I want to introduce my audience to who we're talking to here. This is Brian. Is it Nagata?
Yeah.
Brian Nagata. You probably would know him by Rap Zines on IG and Twitter. But I'm gonna let you finish your introduction.
I'm out here in California. My name is Brian Nagata. I started my Instagram with Rap Zines because I had a large collection of hip hop magazines, and for the longest time I had them to myself, and I decided that I wanted other people, if they wanted to see them, maybe inspire somebody, maybe have other collectors. Who knows what was going to happen, but I just wanted to share them, and that's pretty much how it started.
How many magazines do you have?
Right now, you know what? I don't know what kind of camera angle we got, but I got one of those like rolling carts that the librarians use.
And I put all my new magazines as they're coming in.
Yeah.
Ready to catalog them and put them inside these things.
That's insane.
It's always changing. But if I had to take a good estimate from the last time I cataloged them, it's about 3,000 plus easily of just hip hop magazines, and then there's an additional maybe 1,200 duplicates that I have. So, and that number's constantly rising. So who knows what it is from that point on? But I could be safe to say it's at least 3,000 to 3,500 hip hop magazines.
You're a hip hop hoarder, and that's amazing. That's amazing.
That's 30 years of collecting.
That's
30 years.
I want to show you a little bit of my collection. I don't know. I feel kind of shy about it because like I'm a rookie, you're a vet, you know, and I have a very small little collection. I've been starting to gather things from this era, things that I think are significant collector's items, things from the underground. But let me just stop talking. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna show you what I have.
Yeah. And so, hey, don't be afraid to show anything, because one of the things is it's really not like how many you have and all this, but it's actually that there's people like you that you. I actually did a post today where I was talking about that, where it's inspiring to me to see people of the younger generation that are keeping it rolling. You know, because I'm at the end. I'm ready to retire. I'm in the last years of my retirement of collecting. So I'm like, it's good to be able to hand that off and know that it's secure, because there's other people out there that are going to continue to grow the culture.
Hell yeah.
I'm out here too, you know?
Your impact is made. Your imprint is made. Thousands of magazines.
Love it, man. Love it.
As you can see, I have like some art here behind me. There's an artist. His name is, I don't know exactly how to pronounce it, but I think it's Manesa art on IG. Manesa. I'll put his name, but yeah, he created this. This is like kind of like a Boys in the Hood hip hop legends edition, which is really cool. So that's like one of the first items that I had to start my collection. I would call you a hip hop historian, I would say, or maybe even a archivist. So I kind of like on a similar journey, and through my podcast, I feel like it's like an archive of underground hip hop stories. And then I also have some art, and then so I have a couple of artists that I've spoken to. People still sell cassettes. Can you believe that?
Yes.
I'm old. I know. I have, if right to my left right here, I have probably about 200 cassettes right here on the left side.
That's crazy. I got two. So we out here. My 2 to your 200. But I have so Jesse Raxon is a producer. He makes beats he's from the Bronx. He just released this week. He came by in person and he dropped this off. So this is his cassette. and it's really cool. It's called Things Fall Apart.
Yeah, and it's
coming full circle because like it's a part of it is like obviously like on tape they're not the same quality of if you had it like on an MP3 or even on a compact disc or something, but
that feel, that touch of having a cassette
and it's home brew and homemade and stuff like that is really becoming popular again, and that artists are starting to bring them back out like that too. So
and there's a certain sound that you get from it, like vinyls. I'm assuming that's what they're going for. I haven't listened to these cassettes because I gotta get my hand on a cassette player, but I do play vinyls, and there's just like that scratch. You know, that there's a certain, it's like a novelty sound. But and then
there's people that listen to like classic rock that feel the same way. As like it sounds like that's how it was recorded.
Yeah,
all that scratch and all that. It's not cleaned up. It's just very organic what is on there.
Yeah, the sound of classics. So then I have Pink Moon, which is an artist by the name of Sidewalk Cal, also underground, released this, and I bought this off of him. So I'm starting my little collection, and then I also have a magazine. It's a GQ magazine. It's not a hip hop magazine, but it's J. Cole's GQ cover.
Hey, I know.
Of course you do. And then I have Rihanna's British Vogue. So I'm doing a little something. And then what really started my collection is this Roots of Rap children's book that I got at a Black History Month book fair.
Oh wow, I've never even seen that right there. That's a book?
Yeah, it's really a book.
It's a rap. Oh wow, I'm gonna have to cop that now.
You have to. Really cool illustrations. I'm gonna put this mic down so I can show you the illustrations.
Okay.
I don't know where this mic stand is, but
ooh, yeah. And does it go through like a certain particular? Oh, I see it. Wow, that's beautiful artwork too.
Beautiful artwork. It really just talks about the foundation of hip hop. So it goes from James Brown, DJ Kool Herc. It talks about beatboxing. It talks about breakdancing, block parties. So really just the foundational aspects of hip hop. And it's just like digestible. It's mostly illustrations, and then it has one-liners because obviously it's still a children's book. But it's amazing. I was like, my grown self, I'm loving this. Okay.
Right. No, definitely. You gotta start them young.
Hell yeah. I'm passing this down to my kids. They better appreciate hip hop. Shoot.
Yep.
But speaking of foundations, I want to ask you a little bit more about your foundation for hip hop, your hip hop story, and where it all began. Where did your love for hip hop first come to fruition?
Definitely. As a teenager, well, really young. And, you know, when I was a kid, when I was about 10, 11, and 12, I used to do all the normal stuff. I lived on the east side of Salinas, which is like the ghetto of Salinas, and we used to take our cardboard boxes and our flat cardboard or vinyl linoleum floors, go around the neighborhood, and we'd break dance down there and spray it with I think it was called pan spray,
so you get the slide in,
just to kind of spin on it and stuff. And so we were always like built into that culture. But as I got a little bit older in my early teens, my brother came back from college. He was on the East Coast going to college at Williams College in Boston, I believe, or in Massachusetts, somewhere near Boston, I believe. And he came back with a Run DMC tape, and he goes, "Listen to this." And I listened to it, and I was hooked from that moment. And I started digging into like Public Enemy, and Public Enemy just became like my favorite group of all time. So I wore out those type of tapes in my Walkman over and over, listening to them, and I really started getting into it. So that's where the hip hop part of me started getting involved in.
What appealed to you about it? What appealed to you about hip hop so much? Because Public Enemy is a revolutionary group for its time. So
yeah, and that was, and I thank God that was my luck that I ran into them first, because I think a lot of it has to do with, and this is going a little bit off topic, but it's the honest truth is that I'm half Japanese and half Mexican.
So I've always kind of
dealt with you know, what I liked. Like I have my Hispanic part that I like, and my Japanese race, that there's stuff there, but identity and stuff. And I saw this culture where I heard it, and it really became something that I enjoyed a lot. And so I listened to it, and then when you listen to Public Enemy, especially what they were saying at the beginning, I'm like, wow, they're talking about Black Power and everything that's happening at that time, but it's also the same thing that I can see happening right here where I live. And so I just kind of gravitated toward it, and that was just, I mean, right there, I was like hooked. I was hooked at that point, you know, and so it was part of my identity because it was something that I felt, that's me right there, hip hop, you know, that's a part of me right there already. So that was eye-opening to listen to that. And then it opened up to everything, you know, listening to everything on the East Coast, because that's what was mostly out at the time, you know, B-Boys, Run DMC, and Public Enemy. So I gravitated toward that. The Bay came out. They've been out there, Too Short and everybody from the Bay. So it was just so much coming in, so much information and music that I just fell in love with it at a young age, really young age.
And you participated in it. You didn't even just fall in love with it. You were out there on cardboard boxes and Pam and shit, just sliding around. Like, you were participated in one of the foundations of hip hop. That's crazy. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember my first concert I went to go see Public Enemy, and they were on tour. I was underage, but I was able to go with my older cousin in San Jose at the Sharks Old Arena. But they were on tour with Anthrax, which is, I don't know if you know who Anthrax is. They're like maybe hard rock or heavy metal band. But they had a song together, Bring the Noise, where they did a remix with them. Yeah. And it's just banging loud, like, you know, the guitar riffs. So I went to go see Public Enemy, but you have to see Anthrax while you're there waiting for Public Enemy. Yeah. And I just remember going to the concert. It was the best concert, and they were, you know, doing all that crazy stuff, surfing up the top. I got kicked in the face with a boot.
Amazing. Just, you know, in the name of hip hop.
And from that point, I was like, okay, you're my older cousin. You're taking me everywhere. So any concerts, I can't drive. I ain't old enough, but if I find one somewhere around here, then you're taking me. And so we just went to all kinds out there. It was amazing.
I like how rock and roll and hip hop can go hand in hand when it comes to something like that. Like just being kind of underdogs, outsiders, super radical. So there was a lot of hip hop, rock and roll collaborations at that time, no?
Yeah, and then you had like the Run DMC and Aerosmith.
Right. Walk this way!
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it was a great time. It was a great time to like really be involved with hip hop. And like I said, I fell in love with it. There's not really more to it. That's how at least that part, the hip hop part of it started. The magazine, whole nother story.
Yes, magazines. Let's talk about your collection. Like, I know you touched on it a little bit about what sparked your collection, but let's go in depth a little bit more. Like, what really sparked for you to amass such a large collection of magazines? And if I'm not mistaken, you have a little bit more of the magazines as well.
I think I sometimes think about it. You know, like how did this happen? Like, how did I get to this point? And a lot of it came from what we were just talking about. Is when I fell in love with hip hop. I remember one day going into they don't have them anymore. You probably weren't even born when they were around, but there's a place called Sam Goody's.
Yep. Nope.
It was like a warehouse. Warehouse music store where it was in the mall.
Where I live in Salinas, and they had a Source magazine on the rack. And I was like, a Source? What is this Source magazine? So, you know, I bought it with a bunch of CDs. I think I bought a handful of CDs, and I bought the bag, and I started reading it. And then it started showing me a lot of stuff, because you got to remember, this is pre-internet time, so there's no internet around. So when I open those pages, that's all information that just is going straight from the page to my brain. And I'm like, oh, who's this? Where are these people? Where are they from? What do they have? The mic is giving them a 4 mic rating. I have to know about this group.
So it became my gateway for
information of other artists besides the ones that I knew of that were either on the radio or you saw them on TV or anything. So I started really digging into them, and I noticed like even in those early days, there was a lot of artists that I had never heard of, but once I bought their album, I was like, wow, where have they been? Grand Puba was one that I had never heard of him before. And then when I started listening to his stuff, I was like, man, I found out from the source because they did an article on him, and he's from New York. So I just stuff like that. And so once I started doing that, I was like, okay, I got to keep this magazine because in case I have to go back and reference it in case there's like another album that I couldn't afford at the time. You know, I'm still a teenager, you know, working as a busboy. So it wasn't like I had a bunch of money to buy. CDs were $15 back in the days, and that's back in the days.
Yeah.
So it wasn't cheap to buy an album. And so
I would use that as a reference. So if I ever had to go back and check to see something in there, and I started buying albums. I mean, buying the Source magazine. Double XL came out. Word Up was out at the time, fresh.
I remember Word Up. I remember Word Up because I for sure had them B2K posters. Omarion, shout out to you, Chris Brown, all of that.
I know you ripped them out.
Of course. Of course.
That's what they were meant for.
Yeah. It's kind of like how social media, it kind of is like, from me hearing what you were talking about, it's kind of how we use social media now, like to get a little bit more in-depth look at who these artists are and to discover new talent. And that's before, it was pre-social media. So you're like, okay, who are these people?
Yeah. It's kind of hard to wrap around it now because we're like, why don't you just Google the artists or the top 20 hits? We didn't have that. It was coming from either the radio, the TV, or from magazines.
Yeah, you got to do the work. You have to put that work in.
Magazine that was dedicated to just hip hop. That's like, you know how much that's gold. That information in there is gold.
Yeah.
So that's how it kind of started like that. And what I did
was I went through the waves just like hip hop did. I was listening to a lot of East Coast. Then LA sound started coming with like G-Funk and Dr. Dre, Snoop, and all that stuff. And then the Bay Area was kind of coming at the same intersection this way. And then East Coast was coming back with artists. So
all these waves of artists were coming out.
And so I started like reaching out to other magazines that were like more local, like from the Bay Area. There's a couple of magazines out there called like 4080 and Murder Dog. And they did a lot with like underground hip hop artists that were coming out of the Bay. And so I would have to find those, just get information so I knew what artists I wanted out of there. So then it's taking you're going down this like spider web of information that you want because you want more and more and more. You want to hear more music. And so that's how it was. And I started grabbing different magazines, a vibe here, see what's happening with a little bit of R&B and soul. You have Double XL that had come out that was new. And, you know, they kind of went down south a little bit where they were talking about Goody Mob and all these outcasts. You still have the Source talk about coast to coast albums, Bay Area giving you that underground like mob music or hiking music. You just have all this music out there, but you have to grab all the information. So I kept these magazines, and it's just started little by little. The piles started piling up. And I kept it as reference pretty much, you know, and I love the covers. One of the things is I'm a visual person, so I just love looking at the cover too. And then when I had like a magazine with like Tupac on the cover, you know, it's just a beautiful cover. And I'm just like, man, so I always respected it and kept it nice and neat and put it in a box or somewhere. And it just, that's where it started. I mean, that's how it started. The ball started rolling with it.
And so I started like reaching out to other magazines that were like more local, like from the Bay Area. There's a couple magazines out there called like 4080 and Murder Dog. And they did a lot with like underground hip hop artists that were coming out of the Bay.
And so I would have to find those, just get information so I knew what artists I wanted out of there. So then it's taking you're going down this like spider web of information that you want because you want more and more and more. You want to hear more music. And so that's how it was. And I started grabbing different magazines, a vibe here, see what's happening with a little bit of R&B and soul. You have Double XL that had come out that was new. And, you know, they kind of went down south a little bit where they were talking about Goody Mob and all these outcasts. You still have the Source talk about coast to coast albums, Bay Area, giving you that underground like mob music or hiking music. You just have all this music out there, but you have to grab all the information. So I kept these magazines, and it's just started little by little. The piles started piling up. And I kept it as reference pretty much, you know, and I love the covers. One of the things is I'm a visual person, so I just love looking at the cover too. And then when I had like a magazine with like Tupac on the cover, you know, it's just a beautiful cover. And I'm just like, man, so I always respected it and kept it nice and neat and put it in a box or somewhere. And it just, that's where it started. I mean, that's how it started. The ball started rolling with it.
What's the largest extent or the most extreme extent that you've gone to collect something? Anything, because I know that I've seen you have flyers, you have cassettes, you have magazines, so anything hip hop related.
I think two, and they're completely different, but I mean, those are the two extremes that I could think of. The first two things that popped into my head is the first one is when Death Row went bankrupt and they were selling everything, gold records, everything that was in the Death Row building in LA. I purchased their magazine collection that they had there. So they had like stockpiles of magazines. And I was still, you know, I was making a decent living, but I didn't have enough money to be spending on that right there. And I actually took out a loan from my cousin.
Straight up.
Holy shit!
Look, this is a once in a lifetime thing.
I don't understand what's in there. There's these magazines that they haven't touched by hands, a lot of them, because, you know, they would send them like a packet of 10. They'd probably take the top one up. Sugar Pac would look through it, throw it back, whatever. So they're not like, they're mint condition magazines, and there's a nice, big, large collection of them. And they're rare issues too. So I knew I couldn't afford them at the time, and I was like, okay, look, don't ask me no questions, cuz, but you're gonna have to give me some money, and I promised to pay you back. Which, you know, I paid them back, but I had to have them because I would never see them again. And even to this day, a lot of people are still looking for them. And there's a couple that are like what they consider like Death Row Holy Grail magazine covers, you know?
Yeah.
And I have them to this day still. So
you gotta hit up the hip hop museum. There's a hip hop museum opening in the South Bronx next year. It was supposed to open already, but because of the pandemic, you know, it got postponed. But they're gonna open it on the 50th anniversary of hip hop. That's when they're planning to the next opening date. And you should link up with them because you got some gems. And you can live. I mean, your legacy is solidified, but I don't know. I feel like that would be another way.
I know.
I've been to that point now where I'm like, okay, one of the big things about my collection too is that it's already given me joy, and I enjoy the actual act of like collecting.
Yeah.
But it's gotten to a point now where it's like okay, how can I use this for good?
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, it's gotten to that point where it's no longer like because it's never been about the money or
recognition.
I'm going to sell these on eBay and do all this stuff.
Right.
It's a lot of it is, okay, so how can I preserve these when I'm not here?
Mm-hmm.
What is the best way to make sure that the information that is being held in these magazines is being used for whatever, research, documentaries, whatever they're going to use them for?
That they're actually being used. So I've been dabbling in different areas to try to figure out exactly the right way to do it. But for sure, it's like I said, it's past me. It's first. I'm gonna do something for hip hop. I guarantee. They're not gonna be in the wastebasket or in the garbage can or anything.
30 years? No, we cannot have that, and I appreciate that because I'm gonna be here to tune in, to consume, to whatever it is.
I gotta tell you another story. This is the one where.
Tell me the other story.
So in the
early 90s, the internet was already here, but it was just, you know, it was in its infancy stage. It's not like how it is now. It was just, eBay had been around for maybe like 4 or 5 years, maybe. Craigslist was out. That was the hot thing about local trading in the areas. And I put up an advertisement on Craigslist saying, hey, if anybody has any hip hop magazines they want to sell, call this number, or, you know, and we'll work something out. So I got a call from a guy in San Jose, which is you know where San Jose is, right? It's up north from where I'm at, south of Oakland, and he had a box of them, and I was like, okay. And I would do that. I would do blind drives over there. Don't know these people. Who knows who they are? So I'm driving to San Jose, and I get into a bad neighborhood. I was like, I didn't even know San Jose had a neighborhood like this.
Yeah, they do.
It's those streets where they're really narrow and there's cars everywhere where you can barely get there.
When people are parking on parking spots that are not parking spots, you in the hood now, baby.
So I'm not sure how we communicate from there.
I think I sent him. No, I don't even know if I had a cell phone at the time. No, I had a cell phone. Somehow we communicated, and he said, "I'll be right out." I called him, I think is what I did, and this guy comes jumping out of his window, hops out of his window. I could see him in the front of his house. Has a box of magazines, and it just was really, really super sketchy, like how this transaction was happening. But you know what? He gave me some bomb ass magazines, and I handed him the money, and I took off with them.
And you taking a risk, first of all, coming through the hood, early '90s with a cell phone. Okay, Big Pimpin', you was trying to get set up.
Not risky for that, man. For some hip hop magazines, so. I mean, stuff like that. I used to do a lot of that, a lot of blind sales with people, and just like going off of luck and hoping that people are not going to screw me over and stuff. So there's a lot of cool stories. I mean, that's another reason why, like, a lot of these magazines, I could look at one and go, oh, I remember how I got this one. It's kind of funny, the story for that. And, so some of them have like that little special extra to me. They mean something to me, a little extra, because they have a story behind them,
Yeah. I mean, I think those are the most valuable possessions, things that you can pick up or consume, and it reminds you of a moment in time. And that's why people like music. That's why people like hip hop specifically. You're preserving feelings, emotions, experiences, and it just brings you back or brings you forward or keeps you present. Shit. We in a time machine.
Right.
But I do want to ask this in this video series, and especially to someone like you who is obviously very committed to hip hop, an album that changed your life in one way or another, and why?
It's a tough one. That's a tough one. There's a couple. That's why I'm trying to break it down to which one is more influential to me. But I think there's actually two albums, and I think the second album would be NWA Straight Outta Compton, but the first album would have to be Public Enemy's Yo Bum Rush Show album, because like I said, that's for me, like the story I just told you, that's how it actually started right there, is like really getting into that album, and it triggered something in my brain where I was like, okay, I get it. I understand. And here's the key part. Now, just to jump back to what we were talking about cassette tapes, the key part of that was because I had it on my Walkman, and that tape I bought in Japan.
Rolled down and it had all the lyrics. Not only are you listening to Public Enemy, such a great album, you're able to read a word. There's no genius lyrics
online or nothing. You're listening to it, but you can also, in case you don't, you mishear you don't hear something properly, you're reading it lyric for lyric what Chuck D is trying to tell you in those lyrics, and you're just blown away, like, wow, this is some real stuff right here that he's talking about. And so there's that album has to be, I wouldn't put it up as my favorite album of all time, but the most influential, and the album that actually made me fall in love with hip hop is that.
What about Straight Outta Compton? Because the West Side is the best side.
Straight Outta Compton was because we were playing basketball out at the elementary school, and so we live in an area where there's a lot of gang activity, from every side. There's Bloods, there's Crips, there's Sudanos, there's Norteños, there's all kinds of stuff there. And I remember we were playing basketball, and this hoop drives up, and this guy who I would say he's affiliated with gangs, he's bumping F the Police right there. And when I heard it, I'm just like, what is this? You cannot say that on an album. First of all, what's going on here? Like, it was amazing to me what was being said on that album, and just hearing again. I mean, there's a lot people won't make that correlation, but like Public Enemy, what they were saying and what NWA was saying, there's a lot of the same similarities to it, just in different locations and how they dealt with stuff differently. But you know,
and the vulgarity, NWA had the vulgarity. I mean, hence the name, the entire persona of NWA.
And so when I heard that bumping, I was like, okay, I need to have this album. I don't know how I'm gonna get it, but I'm gonna have to go.
How old were you at the time?
I was playing basketball at Fremont Elementary School, so I had to have been maybe about 14, maybe.
14. That's funny. I was just trying to picture you at 14 on the basketball court, like, yeah, fuck the police. Like, I need this in my life.
Yeah, no, I didn't even say it because I was like, you know, at that age, you're like, you think it in your head, but to actually hear it in rhyme and somebody really
yes, it's something as impactful as music.
You get in trouble for playing that,
right?
Time, you know. So, but yeah, that album opened up a lot for me to really investigate listening to like the West Coast LA sound. Because I listened to a lot of Bay Area sound at the time also, but
makes sense.
To actually kind of go down into LA and listen to stuff like DJ Quick and listening to E.T. and man, there's so many Ice Cube obviously.
Yeah, Snoop Dogg.
It's just talking like right now, me and you talking about like I'm reminiscing about that. I'm just like, man, yeah, there's some good music coming out of that.
It's a vibe. Like California music, if you were to put it under umbrella, it would be like there's just like nonchalance to it. And I guess that kind of captures the essence of California culture in general, just like laid back nonchalance. But I would say the Bay Area specifically, you have a little bit more like party bangers. And like, obviously there's like a little bit of some political aspects to it because it is the birthplace of like the Black Panthers and everything, but I would say there's a lot of party bangers in the Bay. And then you go down to LA and you have some party bangers as well, but you had some, that's where the, you know, gangster rap basically came from essentially. And then so you have G-Funk, gangster rap, and then you got like the beach music.
From that point on, like, and what it's done, you think about all the members and Dre being a part of it, Ice Cube, MC Ren, Yella, and all them, and Eazy. It just spread so much. Eazy found Bone Thugs and Harmony. Yeah. You got Cube, who found an abundance of people. Dre produced how many, all the way until now, even Eminem and 50 Cent. There's just, it just spread.
Yeah. Fact, I'm doing finger guns to solidify that fact. But I'm gonna let you go. I know it's not late over there, but over here it is late. I really appreciate you coming on. I want to tell everyone to follow Rap Zines. I've already shared your page with so many people that I know that are in the underground hip hop scene because I'm just like, y'all need to see this. Like, this shit is crazy. Like, this man is collecting. I'm always posting your stuff. I'm always checking your shit out. I'm like scrolling on your page like, oh my God, like gawking. Like, because literally, like I'm trying to start my collection. As you can see, I showed you my little show and tell. But
yeah.
One day I'm gonna grow up and I'm gonna be like you.
I'll help you up it too. You can always come to me and ask me, you know, if there's certain things you're looking for. Like I said, I got 1,500 duplicates, so there's some stuff in there that you could probably use too, and I don't mind sharing too, you know. So we'll talk about that later on. If there's something, just hit me up on Instagram or something, or I mean, you have my number now. We'll hook you up with some things. So keep that.
Hell yes.
Keep that going.
Hell yes. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I appreciate your contribution to hip hop in general and pushing the culture forward. I'm trying to do my part. I'm trying to push it forward.
Right back at you, yeah.
In whatever ways that I can. We out here. Like I said, we in this boat together. We rowing. I'm the front rowing. You in the back rowing. We gotta all roll.
I'm handing the baton off to you. You guys gotta keep it rolling, man.
I got it. I'm taking it. But thank you guys. IG at Rapzines, RAPZINES, and on Twitter. You can follow. Anywhere else that people can support you?
I use Instagram mostly. It's just the perfect platform for me.
Perfect.
Shows pictures. You can see the cover. It just works perfect.
All right. Well, keep tuning in to ThaBeatBox.com. It's by the time this video is out, it'll be launched. THA Beatbox.com because THA is hip hop. Okay. We don't spell things correctly because it's hip hop. And then you can follow me on IG at ThaBeatBox with 2X, also THA. And on Twitter, I just launched my Twitter recently. So holla at your girl. I'm about to be putting out a lot of content. I'm going to be collaborating with a lot of people who are pushing the culture forward. Once again, I appreciate you. Thank you.
Same here. Appreciate you too. Thank you, Tia.